Welcome to the Budapest Speed Shop. In the last episode, I showed you guys how we got here to this private museum. We are in Kentucky, in Elizabethtown. We took our 280 SL. My son was driving. At that time, he was still learning how to drive, so it was a lot of fun. If you haven't seen the video of our club drive, please look at the description and start there. But we are here at this beautiful museum. The owners own several Chrysler and Dodge dealerships, and they really appreciate old cars as well. So they collected and display their private collection in this beautiful place. Let's go inside and see what we find in there. The first car is a stunning 1953 Jaguar XK120, a real sports car. But let's start on the right here with this one. What you see here is a 1920 Nash with a 6-cylinder engine. It was interesting that the valves were already placed inside the cylinder head. It wasn't in the side in the engine block like most of the contemporary cars had. So it's not a flat head, it's a valve-in head, and it's a touring car, so it's got the rear seats for touring. Next one is a magnificent Rolls-Royce from 1936. Look at the lights, how huge they are. Beautiful chrome on the front, just the proper color for it. It was actually a barn fresh or barn find. They found it in 2003 and they refreshened the car. Beautiful inside and out. I would just can imagine to sit in one of these with a driver in front and then just go to a ball or some other function. Beautiful car. And from a totally different world, a 57 Chevy Bel Air. This one has a 283 V8 engine, and this car is restored, most likely nicer than when it came out of the factory. At that time of the American market, there was a lot of competition going on between Ford and Chevy. So here's the competition, a 56 Ford Club sedan. This car came in 3 different engine sizes. There was the 6-cylinder with 120 horsepower, and the 272 and the 292 Thunderbird engine. They all were available for the same body. And now we're stepping back into the 20s, and it's a 1927 Dodge 4-door sedan. It has a 4-cylinder engine, and it was just a year before the Dodge melted into the Chrysler Corporation. So this was still a standalone brand. And then once Chrysler bought them, they gained 3,000 dealers with them. This Impala is from 1964, a 409 Super Sport convertible. Very interesting car because it has a 409 V8 with 425 horsepower with dual 4-barrel carburetors and glass packs. It's crazy. Also has a Hurst 4-speed manual transmission and a posi traction rear end. And now we're going to jump back to the 1930s. It's a 36 Packard 120B Touring Coupe. The 120 is referring to the wheelbase of the car. It came with a straight 8 282 engine, and it had 120 horsepower. The car was able to reach the 100 miles per hour with that engine. They've made close to 4,000 of these cars, and only 5 of them known to exist today. Staying in the 1930s, looking at the rumble seat, this is a 1932 LaSalle convertible. It has a V8 engine, a 383 cubic inch with 115 horsepower. The famous Harley Earl is responsible for its style, and they made the LaSalles between 1927 and 1940. Manufactured over 3,000 examples of LaSalles in 1932, but only a few came in the convertible body like this one. This was the favorite car for many famous sport person and many famous Hollywood stars. And this 1948 Chrysler New Yorker Coupe was the participant of the Great Race in 1998. It's a 3-window coupe with a beautiful interior, 127.5-inch wheelbase, got a straight 8 engine, 323 cubic inch and 135 horsepower. It's a fluid drive 4-speed semi-automatic transmission with a huge trunk. You can put a bunch of go clubs in it if you wish. Gigantic hubcaps and full white wall tires. Beautiful dash. These cars are truly large cars. They used to be taxi cabs. The 4-door versions used to serve as taxi cabs. Lots of chrome, beautiful car. This is a 1921 Dodge. According to the story, the Maharaja of Pradesh in India ordered 3 of these. Unfortunately, the train what it was delivered by got attacked, and most of the equipment was disassembled and taken off. So the attacked train went back to Bombay, and then they basically put it into a storage house, and that's where they found it when the British left India. So this car actually has an original 30,000 miles in it. Because of this, the car was in a really good shape, but nonetheless, in 2003 they restored it to its current condition. Next car is a beautiful 1953 Packard Mayfair. This is a hardtop coupe. Other manufacturers like Ford and Chevy also made hardtop coupes, so the competition was on. Packard ceased production in 1958, so it was just about the last Packards what they made. It had a straight 8 engine, and I think it was a fairly reliable car, if I understand correctly. It had beautiful lines. They called their automatic transmission an Ultramatic transmission, and it also had power steerings and power brakes. And this is a hooped up 1919 Model T Ford Coupe. It's an aftermarket front suspension. Ford was actually very happy when he seen that so many manufacturers made aftermarket accessories for his cars. The engine also is a high performance engine which someone made. It has overhead valves, and it's a whole different ball game than what the Ford came with. It has a water pump also, which originally was not existing in the Model Ts. Also has an overdrive with a floor shifter. So it has a Warford transmission after the transmission. Also has oversized Rocky Mountain brakes only for the rear axle. The tires are white. Later on they figured it out to color it black so they wouldn't have to clean it all the time. This is a 1932 Plymouth Sport Roadster. A low-priced car, basically a competition for the Fords. So the story says that Walter P. Chrysler was so proud of a car like this that he drove it down to the Ford, and he took Edsel and Henry on a ride, and they were really surprised when after the ride he actually gave it to them. What you see here is the rumble seat. You can climb in it, and it's a regular convertible car. I think it's looking great. There are some holders where you can attach some ropes, or you can actually hang on to it. The interesting part is that this is a 4-cylinder car, and there was no other Plymouth all the way until 1971 when there was a 4-cylinder car was introduced again in the Plymouth lineup. This engine had 65 horsepower. They called it the Zenith 4. And now let's head back to the 1910s, most likely the museum's oldest vehicle, a 1910 Brush. The Brush factory was existed between 1907 and 1911. This car is the Model E26, and it called the everyman's car. They're saying it's costed about $600 to purchase one, so according to the manufacturer, everybody could afford one. You can see the choke here. You put a little gas in it and open up the valve, and that's how you can start the engine. Single cylinder, 10 horsepower. They say it was able to go 27 miles per hour. It has a gearless variable clutch, providing 8 speeds forward and 1 reverse. There is another word in the English language for these cars, the horseless carriage. It has some beautiful lines on the seats, very nice cushiony seats. And what is this German sign say? I don't know. Now this one is a very popular Model A. It's the predecessor of the Model T. There are some factory wrenches what came with the car. Some of them are for Model Ts. They made 4,849,340 Model A's. And Henry Ford at that time said there is no better car than a Model T, and it took quite a bit of convincing to get the Model A out. There's a little library and a very nice lamp. I really like that lamp, the way it looks like. Looking at its sign, might have been in a Plymouth dealership. It's beautiful. 1914 Model T. This is the car what you would call a Tin Lizzie. The drivetrain remained the same throughout the production line. They made about 15 million between 1909 and 1927. This one is an early example. The way you can tell is the cowling is different. You have some wood in it, lots of brass and carbide lights. The ignition coil box was inside the cabin. Later on, it was placed on the top of the engine on later models. And in this one, the fuel tank was under the seat, so it didn't really like to go up on really tall inclines. It liked to go downhill. And if you have ignition problems, you was able to troubleshoot it while driving. This was the least popular body style at that year. Back in 1924, this was a Chrysler 70B Touring. This was the first year in Chrysler's life. They introduced this car at the New York Auto Show at the city's Commodore Hotel. This was a straight competition for the Model A, the Ford Model A. However, this one was a lot more advanced vehicle. It had 7 main bearings, 68 horsepower, and a 201 cubic inch 6-cylinder engine. It also had hydraulic brakes. The following year, Chrysler purchased Dodge, introduced Plymouth, and DeSoto. If you would put it next to a Model A, you would see the details and how much more advanced this car is. And then people actually choose the Model A more despite all these things. At the same year, they started to build the huge Chrysler building in New York City as well. And another Tin Lizzy. This one is also a 1914 car. A non-skid tire, but basically when you went on a mud, it left a non-skid imprint. Another aftermarket suspension addition to it. There are a million different versions of this which you're able to buy for this car. You see the carbide lights, they actually lit up if you lighted them up. This Touring is very similar to the Runabout what we've seen earlier. It just have one more row of seats. You were able to change it between a pickup trucks, a Touring, or a Runabout. It was fairly easy to make those changes. And if you are tired of the wooden spokes, here is a 1969 Chevy Camaro, a 350 SS edition. It's like new, they say. They totally restored it except a couple little minor details. I believe it's nicer than when it came out from the factory. If you want, you can scan this code and read more about the car's history. Every one of these vehicles here has a history, and then there's a sticker on the car, so sometimes you can catch it and scan it in. This Chevy has a 350 cubic inch V8 engine with special cams and carburation. This is a very popular vehicle between classic car enthusiasts in the US. Back to 1941, this is a Buick Super Sport Coupe. Interesting part, in 1941, it was just the last year of car production before the war production begun. It has the Buick Fireball engine. It's a straight 8 engine. This car only has 52,000 miles. As you see, it has dual carburetors in it, and many hot rodders choose this engine to drive their cars with. Razor blade sharp windshield wipers, which you actually still can buy. There are a lot of parts available for this car, by the way. Not everything, but most of the mechanical parts are still available. Beautiful fender skirt. That year was a really good year for Buick. They built 377,428 cars in 1941. Beautiful car. I do have an old Buick as well. It's a 1956 Buick wagon. I really like to drive it. I drove both of my kids home from the hospital when they were born. So the Buick has a special place in our heart at home. Unfortunately, by the time they made my car, it had a Dynaflow transmission in it, which is a good transmission, and a V8 engine. You can scan this story behind the car if you scan this little barcode on it. And then you can read more about this very original Buick. Finally, a Cadillac. It's a Fleetwood from 1937. It's 12 cylinders. It's a V12 engine, 368 cubic inch, 150 horsepower. Beautiful, magnificent work all around the car. It's incredible what shape this car is in. Beautiful headlights and the gigantic engine. Can you imagine to keep this engine clean? Here's the oil filter on the side, and just gorgeous. I can't even imagine how to do a tune-up on it. There's so many wires everywhere and 12 spark plugs to change. It's crazy. This car has a known history since new. So this Cadillac was shipped from the factory on March 18, 1937. It was originally sold by Greenlease Letterman Cadillac of Tulsa, Oklahoma, to an oil executive. I believe this one is a true classic car. Not all classic cars are classic cars, but only those who the Classic Car Club of America decided that they are significant enough to call a classic car. Beautiful taillight, and just in case you want to pass the car, you can see the letter on it says V12, so don't even try. This is a 1939 Rolls-Royce Warth WRB 75 Sedan de Ville, coachwork by Grüne Notting. That was a long name. So coachwork means that Rolls-Royce made the middle part of the car, and then some other factory built the body on the Rolls-Royce mechanics. This car belongs to Midge Wagner, I believe I say it right. She was in Germany with that car just before World War II broke out. And she's saying that she's seen Hitler and his troops marching around, and then they were trying to make it out of Germany before they run over Poland. And then they finally made it just about 2 days before the war started. This is a 1956 Thunderbird. It's salmon color. It's not pink. It's salmon. And it's the second year of the production for the Thunderbird, which they made a few changes. There's that little Van louver, what they put behind the wheel. And also people were complaining about how small the trunk is. So they moved the spare tire out behind the trunk. It's also got an RPM gauge. If you guys want to scan this code, you can read more about this beautiful little car. It also has a hardtop on, which you can remove, and then you also have a soft top hiding inside the vehicle. And another Ford competitor, a 1931 Chevy convertible. This car was the car what took back the lead from Ford. Ford used to outsold Chevy by as much as 8-1, but in 1931, Chevy had 6 cylinders. That was 2 more than Ford. And that year, Chevy captured a sales lead for the first time. The cast iron wonder had arrived, sometimes known as the Stowbolt 6. Chevy's sturdy overhead valve engine would endure into the next early 50s. You can see the rumble seat and the nice handmade lines, and that was a beautiful detail what they added to those cars those days. Not too many left of it, so it's always nice to see a Chevy, because most of the time you just see Model A's from this era. This is a truly magnificent car, a 1928 Packard 443 7-passenger sedan. It's a beautiful car. It's not only 70 years old, but it's also an original, unrestored Packard. Original paint, original upholstery, original engine and powertrain, and it's only got 34,000 miles in it. It has a straight 6 engine, 384 cubic inch, and 9 main bearings. Has a 143-inch wheelbase. It has central jump seats. It runs around 55 miles an hour. Has some artillery wooden spoke wheels. They are really strong as long as you keep them up and well conditioned. You can see a Packard stock. And in 1999, there was a 100th anniversary celebration of the Packard Motor Company in Warren, Ohio, and more than 800 Packards came, and this car was the opus magnum of all, because it's such a good condition car, and it's still original. It only has 34,000 miles in it. If you are interested, you can know more about the car's history if you try to scan this code over here. And another actual classic car. Like I said, classic cars are only a classic car if it's considered by the Classic Car Club of America as a classic. This one is a 1938 Packard Super 8. Only 10 known surviving Packards of this model remains. It was sold new in Miami and Miami Beach, and it served its family for over 50 years. Then Buzz and Diane Hussey of Nashville, Tennessee bought this, and then they totally restored it. It's just a perfect example of a car which is unobtainable for normal people because of the costs and the rarity of it. At the other hand, here is a 1932 Ford. It's a new Ford V8, what Bonnie and Clyde used to use in their endeavors. Here's a picture of the notorious Bonnie Parker as she's holding the gun, and they wrote a letter to the Ford company saying that it's a really good car to run away from the police, and then it's fairly fast. So thank you very much. This car is still a well-working car, a good working car, and you can pretty much buy anything for it. You can see the rumble seat, and on the back, if you pull this holder down, you can put your trunk there. So that's where the trunk word came from. And as you go up, you're gonna see a vacuum-powered windshield wiper. This is a really advanced accessory of its time. This next car is a Pierce Arrow from 1925. It's very significant improvements. Like it had 4 brakes, which was not normal on many cars in the mid-20s. Also, they had a very interesting way of attaching the headlights. This was the first part where later on made the fenders grow into the body. This is a spring-loaded bumper. I guess it was before the bumper law came into an existence, but I guess it worked well. Artillery wooden spoke wheels, and a huge air intake. It was not for air conditioning, but it actually really helped to move the air inside the cabin. Earlier, Pierce Arrow was selling to the high-end market, and this was their first attempt to get into the lower markets as well, because the high-end market was not going too well. So they acquired another company, and they came up with this car, and this became a sales success because it was a lot cheaper. I see several interesting minor details other than a dual spare tires. This supply, it's like a fuel valve, and then you're actually closing the fuel valve and you're filling up the vehicle. And of course, there is the trunk in the back. And yeah, this is great. How many taillights there is. At that time, barely one taillight was existing, if any, on most of the cars. The inside looks very lavish as well. I can just imagine people going to play tennis or something else. There's little vases on the back, so if the girls collect some flowers, they can just put them in those vases. Volkswagen Bugs also had some vases later on. Maybe that's where they got it from. Well, let's sniff around this beautiful 1953 Jaguar. It's an XK120, the true definition of a sports car. If you'd like to know more details, just try to scan this little label on it, and then you can see some more insights on it. This car doesn't have too much of a space for a big guy like me, so some of us buy these cars and then we just get disappointed because we just can't fit in it. One of my friends had one, and then I sat in it quite a bit, and I think I like my Austin Hilly better. This one is definitely a lot more serious car than an Austin Hilly, and it's beautifully done. That's the other thing. Here's the signal light on the middle of the steering wheel, just like in the Hilly. And if you go over 120, you may gonna lose your soft top, so be careful if you want a car like this. Here's a nice little detail of the signal light, which is showing you that if your light is on or not. I don't understand why they put the modern lights in it, but perhaps because they want to see at night, but it looks kind of odd for me. We are back to 1920. This is a Page touring car. At that time of the history, Model T was already made on assembly plants, on an assembly line, but Page was still making their cars in the old-fashioned way that created quite a bit of disadvantage for them. They couldn't come up with the numbers what people would like to buy. This car is really nice in this blue color. If you want to see more details, just scan this tab. Comparing to other contemporary cars like a Model T, this thing has a lot more space in it. Very nice interior, that mohair interior, I think that's what it's called. Very beautiful touring car. A lot of interesting details on it if you look at it closer, like this fuel gauge in the tank. Model T didn't have that. You had a stick, what you got to stick in, but this car actually had a mechanical fuel gauge in it. There was an actual glass rear window which most Model Ts, they also had plastic in them. This car is just in an exceptional shape. It's just beautiful. I just don't know how they done it. There's not too many pages around, and most certainly you can't really find any parts for these cars. So this is great to see a car like this in this condition. Meanwhile, this blue color just came back, and you can see it on some BMWs or some new cars in the same kind of color. So this looks great with the black. This is a 1931 Packard 833 Sport Coupe. It has beautiful details on it. Look at this radiator topping. It's just gorgeous. Can you imagine how long it takes to clean it? Plus, how was it able to survive all these years? This car only has 55,000 miles on the odometer, and most of the details what the car had when it was new, it's all still present. It has a straight 8 engine, and I believe it's built for younger people to take it to, let's say, a golf course. Packard always was an innovator in the car business. And you can see this nice steering wheel with all the little levers on it to adjust pre-ignition and other stuff. You can see the rumble seat in the back, which is kind of strange. Very nice pinstriping. But if it's a closed car, you kind of wonder why would you have a rumble seat? I guess for emergencies, if you have to take some of your buddies to the golf course because their car broke down, maybe because they drove a Ford or something. And you can see the little opening for the golf clubs. It has a matching trunk. That was the name of the little suitcase holder. This was the trunk on the back, and that's where the trunk name came from for the newer cars. There is a shovel looking thing on the rear fender. That's where you can step up and climb into the rumble seat. And here's the place for the golf clubs. It's supposed to have a nice big golf bag what you could push through this opening on the side and then make it to the golf course or go home. Very beautiful automobile. Back then when they made these cars, they couldn't press out a big enough sheet metal, so therefore they substituted the roof with some soft material and some wooden structure. This is my most favorite car in the whole collection. It's a 1914 Renault. If you haven't heard about Renault, it's a French car. This one has a 4-cylinder engine. The valves are on the side, so it's a flathead. It has a magneto ignition and a gigantic radiator. And surprisingly, the radiator is behind the engine. So this will enable the driver to have more view, or it has more visibility forward of the vehicle. I believe Renault only supplied the front part of the vehicle, and the back part was built by a coach builder or someone else. This one was built to be a taxi cab. An interesting part, in World War I, when the German troops were advancing, there was no way for the French soldiers to get to the fight, so the taxis were commissioned to take the troops over. So there was over 600 taxis were commissioned to head over to the battlefield. I don't see too many French cars in the US. Last time I was in France, I went to La Palisse, which was a small little town. If you haven't seen my video of it, I would highly recommend watching it if you like weird cars or vehicles there. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. Seems like this car is just like any other French car I ever seen. They are under repair. They always need something fixing. True Renault, yeah. You always get to fix a French car, that's for sure. French always had a very interesting way to answering engineering questions, so to speak. 1930 Hopmobile Victoria. It has a 100 horsepower straight 8 engine, a balanced crankshaft and a flywheel, steel hydraulic brakes, ventilated windshield, and a custom coachwork by Murray Body Company. The Victoria was sometimes referred as a doctor's car. Beautiful mohair interior and very nice wood paneling on the dash. The car company ceased existence in 1939, but until then they built really beautiful cars. There are several interesting little details on this car which I like. I'm not sure how much I like the color. I think it's a little bit of a baby poop green, but yeah, I need to. I'm not sure I would like that car to have. but the condition of the car is outstanding. It's really nicely done. Maybe that was the color what they came up with, but even at that time, I probably would have chosen some brighter colors or something more happy colors than this. If you want to know more, you can scan this code and then you can read more about this car. Beautiful long hood, that part I really like, and some gigantic headlights. This one is a 1933 Packard Model 101. It's an L-head straight 8, 320 cubic inch, synchromash 3-speed transmission, vacuum booster brakes, ride control, shock absorbers. Packard was in trouble. This was the middle of the Great Depression, and nobody had money to buy a new car, so they didn't really make too many cars. Especially interesting that this car is actually being built and it's still here. Later on in time, in the early 50s, Mercedes had a kind of similar color. They call it a tired mouse gray. If you like to know more about this car, you may scan this little sticker and then you can see more there. And another Packard from 1932. This one is a Model 900 touring sedan with dual side mount spares and trunk rack. Disc wheels with the wide white wall tires, 6-volt electrical system. The engine was an L-head straight 8, 320 cubic inch. Transmission is a synchromash 3-speed. This car was a limited production car and it was only built for 1 year only. 1932 was the middle of the Great Depression, so there were only 900 Packards were built. Packard is one of those magnificent vehicles which are going to be unobtainable for most of the population, so therefore you can yearn about it, but it's pretty much untouchable for a regular car enthusiast like myself. Look at these nice details on this luggage rack. Incredible what kind of technology they came up with in the 1930s. If you think about the straight 8 engine or the V16 engines in the 30s, they were incredible that they were able to pull that off. It's a really, really hard engineering feat to make those engines viable and usable. This one has that slant grille. It looks really sporty. This car is a 1931 LaSalle convertible rumble seat coupe. Body by Fisher, chassis by Cadillac, wheelbase 134-inch. Engine is an L-head 90-degree V8, 348 cubic inch. 95 horsepower, 3-speed synchromash transmission. Weight 4,860 pounds. Stylist Harley Earl. Body style convertible coupe with a rumble seat. In 1931, it costed $2,345. LaSalle was launched by General Motors in 1927. Truly a magnificent car. At least you can open the top of it and you can put your hat on and then hit the road. It's beautiful. LaSalle was created to fill the gap between the really expensive Cadillac and maybe not so expensive Buick. So I think they did a good job. And then after a while, they had to close the brand down, and then Cadillac remained and Buick has remained. Even little armrests on the rumble seat, and then you have a trunk in the back. LaSalle lasted until 1940. Harley Earl, who designed this car. He was still a young designer, and he got the idea from Hispano Susia. So basically, he took that as a base for the design of this beautiful car. Now this car, I would love to drive. I like that one. The next one is an early Chrysler Airflow from 1936. It's called the Imperial Series C10. It has a straight 8 engine in it, 130 horsepower, 323 cubic inch. Considered the most influential car of the 1930s, the Chrysler Airflow was the brainchild of engineer Carl Breyer, who put it into the most modern concepts of automobile and aviation designs. Airflow bodies were constructed around a cage-like steel girder network to which the body panels were welded to. The body and chassis were one integral unit, making the Airflow the forerunner of today's unit body construction. There's also an company called the Adler. It's a German company. They also made a similar airflow design for the Autobahn. There is one in the Lane Museum in Nashville. Of course, there's everything is in that museum, but that was a very similar concept from the German side. Despite all this innovation, I guess it was way ahead of its time, so people didn't really buy into it. They only sold 4,259 of this model. Needless to say that very few remain, and it's incredible to be able to see one in this condition at all. Opening the windows there, it really helps in the airflow when you drive around. I guess it's an early air conditioning to be able to open up the window like that. Sometimes a little bug will fly in, but if you want, you can scan this. A 1932 Chrysler Sports Coupe. Beautifully chromed front grille and the gazelle, just like on the Russian Volga. The Chrysler Sport Coupe quickly became the favorite car of young professionals and successful business persons of the 1930s. Mohair interior, looks like a beautiful a dash and an air conditioning unit right there. This is a car which is really enjoyable in our today's world. It drives well. It's not that slow like most of the other cars from the era. It's just a nice car. Unfortunately, many hot rodders found this car and then put V8 engines in them and then totally changed the way they were back then. So it's really nice to see an actual original one with a rumble seat and to see how it's actually looked like, because most of the time when you see a vehicle like this, they were totally changed, and you're going to have some modern digital engine instruments in it and some modern seats and some crazy engine in the front. This car has received a frame-off restoration, and today it's in a beautiful condition. Meanwhile, most of our club members have arrived with their cars, and the curator lady who is in charge with the museum giving us a very nice tour about all the cars what you just seen here. Many thanks to the museum that they opened the doors for our club, and thank you for watching, and see you guys next Friday with something else. Bye.